What is up, y'all? Welcome in to the AP poll reaction show. As soon as that poll drops, we will get it to you guys live. Adam Kramer and Paige Keene from the No Punts Allowed podcast here with you. And we wanted to start off this week by talking about the controversy around the AP poll, because we talk about the AP poll every week, but all of college football was talking about the AP poll this last week after the rankings came out. And of course, there was maybe a mess up where a voter did not know that Florida lost and moved them up. And it was brutal. The comments were brutal. The reaction was brutal. The explanation of it was brutal. But Adam, wanted to get your thoughts on that overall.
All right. So in college football, we have too many people voting on too many things. The Heisman has too many voters, and the AP poll probably has too many voters, right? Those votes are public, so we get to see them.
Yes.
I'm all for differing opinions, right? We're gonna disagree on this. That's why we love this show. To your point, like we do this show every week. People are gonna want campaign for their fan bases. We get it, but they have to be informed opinions. You have to at least be able to validate why you're doing a
Yes.
certain thing. And there was no doing that here, right? Like that was the issue that not just I had, but everybody else had. So you want to be contrarian, like we'll see this week. We're gonna have strong opinions about the top five. I can tell you right now, I do.
Yeah.
But it also has to have some logic to it. And I think that was the problem. Like, wouldn't you say like that was the problem, that you couldn't connect the dots to make this a logical argument?
Absolutely. And I think the thing is we know that AP poll voters are, beat writers, and they're covering these games on site, and so they're probably not watching much. And there is no perfect system. I think that's why like college football has struggled over the years to find their exact system. Now we have the college football playoff. I think we would agree that maybe the college football playoff committee is not made up of the best people to be deciding this.
No.
They're adding, statistics back into those decisions week to week starting this season. But I also just want to say, I think the college football playoff, one thing they do get right is that they don't start ranking until
Yes.
later in the season, where they have a good chunk of the season to be able to evaluate some of these teams. And that's what's hard about the preseason rankings of this. We said it a couple weeks ago before this even happened. We said, please get rid of preseason rankings because of the fact that we don't need to stick to those and, hold them so close. We can move teams around. But yeah, so we did want to just say, one, I love this because this is why we do
it's good
this.
for business.
Of course, we know that the AP poll is something we are reacting to and we don't have votes on, but we're going to give our opinions on what should change and what should be different. But also we love that the chat gets to do that as well. Like we want to hear from you guys and what the majority of college football fans are thinking, because you guys are the ones watching and watching games that maybe some of these beat writers are not able to see.
This poll does matter, by the way.
Yes.
I will say that this is what infuriates you and I about the preseason poll. This does have an impact because once that preseason poll is out there, it's set. And one of the
Yes.
things that we have said and will continue to say is deviate from that quickly once you get the results. Team like Miami, who I didn't love, they got to go way into the top. A team like Clemson that we both loved, get them out of there. Like they better not be in this poll. Get them out of here this week. So adjust, react based on the results, and again, watch the actual games so you can make the best possible top 25 you can get.
Yes. So the AP poll is just dropped and it will be up here on your
boy.
screens shortly. But we do have a poll in the chat that says who drops the most this week in the rankings. 80% says Clemson. I think we can agree that that's a good thing. And I will inform the chat here live. Clemson is not in the rankings. However, these rankings are going to make people mad. So let's start with number 5, Georgia, because let's talk Georgia, Tennessee. I would argue that Georgia should be at least number 3, if not number 2. Do you agree?
Why is Penn State? First off, if you watch Penn State play, like they're beating bad teams by a lot of points. The offense hasn't looked all that much great. I follow a lot of Penn State people, and they're like disgusted with the showings that they have. The games have to matter. Like the results have to matter. What you're seeing should mean something in this poll. I'm shocked by that, frankly. That
Yes.
we're not, and Penn State's going to play Oregon. They'll have time to prove it. I didn't mean for this to be a Penn State thing, but after a win like that, I'm with you. It feels like Georgia should be higher. It feels like Miami should be higher, quite candidly, right? Like that was a really impressive win. But for Georgia, look, defensively, you could still be worried. I'm still worried. That does not look like the Georgia defense that we grew up with Kirby Smart as he was building this thing. But I like the play of the quarterback. They've got some speed, they've got some options, and they've got some gut too. I mean, falling down behind the way they did in the comeback page, I thought that was huge.
Yeah, I'm really confused why Texas is still at 8. That to me feels a little odd. I feel like Texas A&M and Oklahoma and Illinois all have a case to be in front of Texas.
So Texas, the resume is lost to Ohio State at Ohio State. This is CFB
But in terms of
playoff.
like watching them
No, no, no.
play,
I agree with you. I mean, Arch got booed, right? He completed less than 25% or 50% of his passes against an inferior opponent. This is where being a big name brand helps,
yeah.
certainly helps. But in terms of who's done more, there are teams right behind Texas, including one of its rivals, that has no business being ranked behind them, in my opinion.
You know what's crazy to me is that so Oregon dropped 2 spots, okay, from last week, and you just mentioned like Ohio State and Penn State have not moved, but to your point, like Penn State hasn't shown us anything that Oregon hasn't been showing us in terms of like inferior opponent and like margin of victory. Oregon's looked much better. It's wild to me that that's the disrespect that's on Oregon. And I know they're in the same conference, but it's interesting that Oregon is the team that's getting the brunt of this and moving down too.
So if you look at who's in front of Oregon, you've got LSU, you've got Miami, you've got Georgia, you have teams with I'll call marquee victories, right?
Yes.
Statement wins. We'll talk about LSU in a little bit because that's interesting. Brian Kelly's mad, but they're still winning, and all is largely still well. But for Oregon, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, I mean, these aren't like
No, but
FCS.
my point is about Penn State. Like Penn State should move down and be below them. I'm not
We're
saying LSU,
stubborn, and
Miami,
and
and
and and
why
this
are we
is
doing this though? Why?
because we don't people don't want to be wrong. Like they start their preseason AP poll, and they say, well, Penn State's got one of the best defenses in the country, and they've returned a lot. All of these things are true, but in terms of results, and again, you look at the final scores and you watch the games, I think it's a little bit different. And look who it's come against.
Yeah.
So it's okay to move Penn State down. This is what I want to tell
Guys,
AP poll
yes.
voters. It's okay. They're going to play Oregon here soon.
They're gonna, yes,
One of
they
the
can
games
get
of the
themselves
year.
back up again.
Yeah, so I think this is where I wish this poll was a little bit more fluid. I wish people would take chances in voting on this and say, "Wow, Miami right now to me looks like a top 3 team." Right? Like it's okay to say that with the wins that they have, manhandling USF.
Yeah.
It's okay to overreact as long as there's logic behind it.
So I want to talk about Notre Dame because the chat, how is Notre Dame still ranked? Someone said Notre Dame is ranked because of the name. Of course, that game against Texas A&M, Texas A&M moving up 6 spots, rightfully so. A game on the road. Thoughts on Notre Dame still being in the top 25?
I do have a problem with it. Now,
So do I.
on one hand,
Big problem.
I a lot of respect to Notre Dame, although the rest of the schedule is but tough, right? Miami, Texas A&M, you had the bye week in there, so you're 0-2. How are we ranking 0-2 teams when you've got teams behind them, the TCUs or an Arizona State or a Tulane or a BYU? These are all teams that got votes, right, on the
Yes.
outside that we could put in front of an 0-2 team. And if Notre Dame plays their way back into the AP poll, great. But the 0-2 just seems odd to me. Like let's take a breather from Notre Dame. They have a chance to redeem themselves. Fine. Tough schedule, but no, yeah, I don't think they should be ranked this week.
Yeah, tough schedule, but you can earn it. I think someone in the chat said literally let them earn it. Like you can, it's
Yeah.
okay to let these teams, fall out and come back in. That's the nature of this. It's supposed to be a week to week snapshot of what
Yes.
has happened in college football. And then, of course, taking the resume into consideration. But I feel like right now, resume really isn't that much of a consideration. But let's move around a little bit and talk about Tennessee at 15 because I know we talked about that game, but just in general, in terms of Georgia and Tennessee, to me, having seen what we've seen in the SEC, I do actually think those are the 2 best teams in the SEC right now. And I know people are going to be mad that I said that, not LSU, but still.
I
Thoughts
well, here's the other thing.
right now?
Right now, Tennessee's secondary is banged up badly,
Yeah.
and so I do think not an excuse. Right, there was a lot of breakdowns in that game yesterday. That defense needs to be better. So my counter argument to that is defensively, yikes. Like there's room for growth on both sides. But Aguilar's been pretty good. A couple of like throws that you can't make. Started off so great in that game, and then I thought they didn't adjust as well as Georgia did as the game went on. A lot of talent, a lot of skill. I have no issue with this ranking. On the other hand, like this is like a different story than a Notre Dame, right? Like this is a they hung pretty
Yes.
tough. They should be right there. And then what happens next will be dictated based on where we go. And they've got a couple of reasonably decent games. Then you get what Mississippi State, Arkansas, at Alabama, Oklahoma. So we'll find out. The results are going to tell us everything we need to know about Tennessee over the next 6-7 weeks.
Is there any team that you look at this and you're like, you know what? I think we should have them higher or we should have them lower, or just happy to see them in the top 25, like a Vandy or a USC? The chat is very happy about both those teams.
USC is really interesting because the arrival, and I was curious if they were going to be ranked. I don't know if I'm happy that they're ranked, but I think we're taking note of USC, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yes.
That offense can really really move. It looks like they have settled in at quarterback. I think they're like a team. We talked about this Oklahoma last week. Oklahoma's schedule being tough. USC's got some tougher games. That's not a team you necessarily want to play right now either, right? If that offense is going and the defense is capable, and I think it's improved drastically from where they were a few years ago, where they made the defensive coordinator change. That's a team in the Big Ten that we have not talked about as a factor,
Yes.
for good reason. Look at all the other teams above; they are a factor. There's another thing we talked last week. I want to address this. I'm thinking about this all morning. We talked about conference superiority, Big Ten, SEC. We had people voting for the Big 12 and ACC. Shout out to them. Um, when you look at the depth of the SEC showed up again with a Vandy, and I know it was over South Carolina, right? And you look at the quality of Missouri, the depth of that conference right now, Texas A&M obviously over Notre Dame, right? That's one for the trophy mantle. It's just insane. And I'm not saying that campaigning. We're this. Believe me, we try to be as fair as we can be. The depth of that conference, top to bottom, right now is wild.
Yeah, some people in the chat wanting to talk about Georgia Tech because, of course, this upset win over Clemson is maybe flashy in the sense that it's against Clemson, but we can talk about Clemson a little bit. But are you okay with Georgia Tech being ranked where they are and moving maybe above some of these other teams that might have had more quality wins? Maybe
I,
like a Vandy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fine with it now, right? Like that was another team. Like, welcome. You got to have them in. Where are you going to pencil them in? So,
Yes.
win over Colorado at Colorado, pretty good. Although, who knows? Colorado again kind of got blown out by Houston this week, so it's not as good a win maybe as we thought. But they feel like they're right where they should be. Do you have a problem? I have no issue with that. You could flip Vandy, Georgia Tech's the world, like the new faces. I'm just happy they're included right now. And Georgia Tech has a pretty comfy road here for the next month or so where they could win a bunch of games and probably creep a little bit higher.
Yeah, I don't mind it just yet. I also do think it is a very good football team, very high on them coming into the season. Vandy, of course, played against a team that, again, Lenora Sellers, I know they were ahead before, so that could have
Yeah.
been a non-factor, but you just never know in terms of those things. Do want to mention that South Carolina has completely fallen out of the rankings here, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
South Carolina got 82 votes, so they were third out.
Okay.
Let's just address Clemson really quick because this we're
Yes, we can.
they're out. Clemson got 6 votes. To put that in perspective, Baylor got 6 votes. Nebraska got 9. Right? Clemson is not just out, but out of the picture. And I wrote about this yesterday. This is a colossal failure. Now, I know injuries have been a problem, injuries at the offensive line, injuries at defense, wide receiver. I'm still in awe, Paige, at how inept that team is. Like this was an offense we thought
Yeah.
with Klubnik finding himself last year would cook. They've got skill position players galore. The defense has not been great. The offense has not been great. The quarterback play obviously has struggled. Uh, it's over. Like that's it. Like I picked them to win the national championship. That hands up. Like that was bad. That was not smart. There's a lot of games left, but I think we've seen a lot from them to know that this team is not a legit contender. And I don't know when they're going to get back into this poll. It's going to be a big climb.
Yeah, that's going to be a big if. Someone in the chat really wants to know, is Houston on the fringe? Houston did not receive any votes. I hate to tell you. Um,
Which makes me mad. They're playing some good ball. They great coach, good quarterback, former 5 star.
against Colorado. Okay.
But
Yeah, no, I give it time. Give it time. I think
if
the Big
Clemson's
12.
getting votes, Houston should be getting votes.
Okay,
Okay.
but I wouldn't have given Clemson any votes, so don't get mad at me there. Um,
To me, they got to
I
vote.
I would be more upset about the fact that Tulane is not as close as I thought.
Yes.
Getting into this, they are, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seventh out. That's wild to me.
Yeah, the group of
That's a bit
five,
wild. Yeah,
the
that's a
race
little.
is on, right? That is
Yeah.
wild to me. Now they play Ole Miss next week.
Yes.
So a win there, and there'll be a double-digit dog. But that changes, right? They go into that Georgia Tech Vandy like let's put them somewhere reasonable here because they're a really good team. So I think they should be competitive in that game.
BYU, the first out. Just wanted to note that. Um, let's talk about Michigan and their quarterback, Batman. Maybe we have to get a blood test to confirm, but thoughts on Michigan?
First off, the fact that their interim coach Biff did not go sleeveless shirt yesterday like he did when he was the head coach at Charlotte, really disappointing. There was a great opportunity there to just be that guy. I look, Bryce Underwood is the most impressive true freshman quarterback we've seen in a really long time, in my opinion. I think he's really, really capable. The question for me with Michigan all along was what are the pieces around him? They've sent a lot of really good players to the NFL. They don't have the same explosiveness that I think they did. Not a knock. It's just a matter of how much talent they had. Now, Central Michigan, what does that tell us? It was a way to get right after the Oklahoma game. Underwood was sensational in this passing, and I like the fact that they're running him a little bit more. I think that is a key to success. You look at Mateer at Oklahoma, you got to protect your young best, this young player. So maybe you want to be careful in how you use him, but he's so good in the open. You're playing Nebraska this week. That should be part of the formula. That's a great game. There's a ton of games we can't wait to talk about because they're not like the Georgia Tennessee super high profile, but they are super meaningful and are going to impact this poll. I like what I'm seeing from the quarterback, and then we'll see how the rest of the pieces come together.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of those games and kind of what is ahead for some of these teams, because I do think there is quite a bit that could be not figured out, but I think this is where we start to see teams obviously play in their conference. We start to see a little bit and learn a little bit more about these teams. Let's start with the Big 12 because I think there are quite a few Big 12 teams. I mean, we talked all offseason about how that league was completely open, but Texas Tech and Utah look to be two teams that are well sound oiled machines.
Utah was not great for a while against Wyoming. You had some kind of sleepy week three, whether it was Iowa State and Arkansas State, but and Utah versus Wyoming. I think the big factor here for me, Paige, is home field. Utah home field is just an enormous advantage. Texas Tech can score though, right? These are two very
Yes.
different offenses. One that wants to really throw the ball. The other, of course, is going to get the quarterback in motion. It's going to be a small spread. Again, not necessarily that high profile game, huge implications on the conference. I probably have an early lean Utah because of the environment. I don't know though. Texas Tech is a team that I think we're going to learn a lot about here in the next 7 days.
I talked to Texas Tech players when we were at Big 12 Media Days and asked them like what games and which places are, they're ones that they're like, all right, we want to go in and win there. And Utah and BYU were the two.
Yeah.
So makes sense. It does make a lot of sense. Let's maybe move to the SEC and maybe some fringe teams in Auburn and Oklahoma. I guess I shouldn't say fringe teams in Oklahoma. Sorry, Oklahoma,
Oh
not to be
boy.
offensive. I
Wow.
know. I know that was offensive. I'm sorry. But thoughts on Oklahoma versus Auburn?
So I think it's two teams that we're still trying to figure a little bit about. Now, I'm going to say it sounds odd to say this. I was very impressed with Oklahoma at Temple because this was the ultimate letdown spot. I know Temple football's not very good. I thought Temple was going to cover this game. Really thought they were going to cover this game. They did not. Oklahoma played great. Mateer played great, and the more you see from the defense, they they play with purpose. Like there's an attitude there that feels very Clemson glory days esque. So I think I'd probably give the early advantage to Oklahoma. Auburn offensively, though, is really a tough guard, right? The way that they're using their quarterback right now, the wide receivers, you and I talked about them all. They are dynamic. So again, Norman, Oklahoma seems like the big deciding factor. But I think, and I'm curious what the point spread is on this game, just to start, because I think this has got to be pretty close just based on what we've seen. 4.5, Oklahoma early 4.5 point favorite feels about right. I'd probably lean Sooners. What about you?
Okay. You know what? I'll take Oklahoma, obviously, because I'm high on that team and think they can be really good. I think obviously their schedule is really tough, so I think we haven't been talking enough about how Oklahoma can actually be a huge factor in the SEC because of the fact that, like, hey, if you beat that schedule, you're definitely in the college football playoff. You're definitely going to be competing for an SEC title. But in the chat, biggest week 4 upset potential, lot of love for Nebraska.
I mean, I get it. Like they're only a 2.5 point underdog. So it's not even, would it be that crazy? Right? Like would it be that nuts? If they lost, no, I think Nebraska is a team that is, yeah, we Cincinnati was a good start, even though it was an ugly game, and then they've just been playing cupcakes ever since. So it's time to learn a little bit about what their quarterback is, and I think we're going to learn it here.
We've got Illinois, Indiana. This is the game of the ranked Big Ten teams that people love to say are overrated and shouldn't be as high as they are in the chat. You guys, these are probably the two most popular picks in terms of why are they ranked where they are. These are not good teams. Any lean on that game?
I like the road team. I'm going to break the environment
Break the
matters.
mold. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. No, I think Illinois is just a more of a complete team. Now,
Yep. Agreed.
against Duke, they got the help of 5 turnovers. They also helped force 5 turnovers. I
Yes.
think they're a little bit more complete. Indiana, by the way, for as big of a story as they were last year, just completely under the radar. A large part of that is because the schedule has been a joke. Not a joke here. This is a really fun game. I'm leaning Illinois though.
Okay. Where else do you want to go on the slate next week? I don't feel like we have. I mean, Tulane Ole Miss is
I,
obviously a good one. I also think it's just interesting that like Illinois definitely is getting that credit for, and I
yeah.
said this before, Illinois is getting that credit for that win over Duke, and then Tulane probably didn't get maybe the love that they deserved this week for that win
So,
over Duke, in my
so
opinion.
I think we have to at least talk about Miami, Florida for a couple of reasons. One,
Yes.
one, this morning we saw our first two coaches fired. So
Yes.
UCLA and Virginia Tech, two pretty good football schools, are going to be looking for new head coaches. So let's talk about Miami and Florida. So Florida loses to LSU, um, and 5 interceptions from DJ Lagway. Rough, right? There's no other way to put it. They were in that game, pretty competitive in that game. Defense deserved better. Miami in this one more than a touchdown favorite. Miami looks like a real problem to me. The way they play up front, and I just wonder where the psyche is now of the quarterback who kept staying in the game. By the way, kept throwing
Yeah.
interceptions, kept staying in, and coach. So I think Miami wins this game. And then the question is, even though Florida stuck by their guy, like if they lose here, because you're about to go through the gauntlet of schedules, like
Yeah.
is that the moment? A week from right now, are we talking about Florida sending out a press release saying they moved on from their head coach?
Maybe.
I think we got a
I
shot.
yeah, I think the other thing that really came up yesterday during games was just quarterbacks. I mean, we spent so much of this offseason hyping so many of these quarterbacks and being very critical of others. And sort of the grouping of, the Cade Klubniks, the Arch Mannings, that were favorites for the Heisman, and now that conversation has definitely shifted. Is there any quarterback that you want to give their flowers for at least this week before we, dive into, getting rid of those guys completely out of it? Maybe if they turn things around and play against tougher competition and have Heisman moments. But is there anybody that you're like, you know what, we should be talking about these quarterbacks more?
Well, it's funny because for as bad as it's been, how about the guy on the screen? Right?
Carson
Like
Beck.
Carson Beck. Like
It's true. We were
in
very critical.
it
That's why I
we
was saying we were
I
very critical. We were worried.
very critical, had some great moments, that had the injury all over the place. It feels like he has found this perfect fit for him, right?
Yes.
In this program, playing with really good players helps, of course. And then, I see in the chat, OU needs to keep running Mateer. This dude is sensational. Now
Yeah.
he's jump throws. He's doing some wild things out there. And I think the risk when you watch him, and even watched Sam Levitt last night for Arizona State, who's not ranked but trying to get ranked, like these quarterbacks are electric to watch. It's just, can they limit the mistakes? Because you're right,
Yes.
the quarterbacks we expect to be talking about after weeks like this, we are not.
Yes. Someone in the chat said Gunnar Stockton deserves his flowers. Y'all said this dude was trash and he balled. First of all, I did not say he was trash. We said
No,
we weren't sure about how he was. We needed to see more. We hadn't seen that much of him. And I do feel like he does deserve some credit. I think the biggest thing was I feel like Georgia did a really good job of managing expectations for him week to week and kind of getting him started and prepping him for that game. But to go into a tough environment like that and play like he did, we'll definitely give him credit for that. Absolutely.
I thought in the playoff game last year he deserved so much better with the drops and the way he was just absolutely
Yes.
mauled. That feels like a long time ago, considering the defense Notre Dame is playing right now. But um, no, he's great. He is not the most physically imposing. In fact, when he had to come out so Georgia could throw the Hail Mary to the end zone, like I'm not making light. This is what you have, but you have a guy that's very, very capable that does deserve a lot more credit, and I think is a bit of a matchup nightmare because of what he can do with his legs. So um, that is a fun team. I know the offensive scripting in Georgia is always like very well commented on, critiqued. I thought they did
Yes.
a brilliant job of getting the ball to playmakers yesterday. He did a really, really good job. Yeah, no, I agree. We're not getting him enough credit right now.
Yeah, more comments in the chat. Joey Aguilar obviously played well, but another guy that I do want to talk about, and a team I want to talk about, is Ty Simpson. We talked on our podcast this last week, and I said I feel really bad that he has gotten like after the first week, it was really. I think maybe people were more reasonable about putting the blame on him, but it wasn't really his fault. We were like, hey, don't blame him. This isn't his fault. And we've seen progressively maybe that offensive line against lesser competition getting a little bit better, getting better at protecting him, giving him the time to be as good as he is. But he's been great over the last few games.
At one point, you and I were talking about this before we came on. He had completed 30 of his last 31 passes. Now, what's really interesting about them, Ryan Williams being back helps. Jeremy Bernard, baller. They have a really, really good duo working on the back end. So just what can we get defensively? And what are we going to get effort wise? I hate to question the effort for Bama, but given what we saw against Florida State,
Yeah.
who maybe is really good, we haven't talked about them in a few weeks. We will once things get going. That's the question I have. But you're right. Was it too soon on Bama? Is the question, right?
Yes, no, yes, I said, do you think that we're like maybe 2 weeks away from having to apologize to Alabama for,
Beautiful
you
thing
know,
here. Beautiful thing. They got a
is we
bye
will.
week. Then it's Georgia. Then
Yeah.
it's Vandy. Missouri, Tennessee, at South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma. Brutal.
Yes.
Just brutal. So we don't need to apologize yet. Let's see how the gauntlet goes, and
Yes.
and then we'll find out. But
Absolutely.
yeah, they've
And
got they've got an offense.
I think there's nothing wrong. I think if we learned anything from the AP poll controversy this last week, there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what? I was wrong and they proved me wrong, you know?
Yeah.
We've got real Heisman contenders up here. Ooh, Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier fighting it out in there.
I mean, who are
And
we? Arch? Why?
Arch.
Who? I want to know why and who. What are we doing here? Look,
Yeah, the
and
11%.
I
Show yourselves.
show
Tell
you-
us.
disruptors injecting chaos in the poll. I get it. Arch, like it's not going great. Let's not talk about Heisman. Let's talk about playing better. That's what we should talk about with Arch. And I'm not even trying to be like disingenuous. Like that's where we're at with him. Carson Beck, legit Heisman contender. Plays at a
Yeah.
team, a program. That's a big deal. Plays the position. They're going to win a ton of games. Like Carson Beck right now, I'll try and get Heisman odds real quick, is absolutely a legitimate Heisman contender. In fact, right now, Paige, believe it or not, he is number 2 in terms of odds. And he's
Is it still
right behind.
Nussmeier?
It is John Mateer at 8-1,
Oh,
Carson
wow.
Beck at 9-1, then Dante Moore at 12-1.
Shout out
Nussmeier
Dante
is
Moore.
number 4.
I want to say this also about this year, specifically in college football. We've talked so much about how the sport has changed. You know, money is involved now, and oh, people are going on and on about how it's ruining the sport. Isn't this way more fun to have teams like a Clemson that we thought on paper was going to be great and isn't. And we've seen maybe some competition in a team like Florida State, who we were like, hey, you know what? We didn't see they could do it back to back years, and they had a really rough last year. They're not going to be great. Isn't it great that we're getting these programs to build and grow that aren't just the same top two or same top four, especially in the playoff expanded era? Like, I'm excited. There's a lot of teams that have playoff potential at this point in the season. And I feel like, in years past, we'd have, a Notre Dame, they would have been out even just with the one loss, I think, because they
Yeah.
weren't, the strength of schedule wasn't going to match up to the other teams that were going to be qualified to make that 14 playoff. But now having the 12 and being able to do it this way, like, I actually like this a lot more. Like, this is a lot more fun. And I think this is starting to show the positives of the changes in college football after a couple years of it being part of the system.
So it's really interesting you mentioned that too, because well, if you're a Clemson fan, everything you just said, you're like, this is terrible, and
Yeah, like
why
this
am
is
I
the
why
worst. We just let us be the way
just
we were.
yeah, this was bad.
Leave the transfer portal
But
alone.
but it does put an emphasis on like, Utah, Texas Tech. I'm going to look at that game because we said a lot of these things would de-emphasize the regular season. No, that game to me is meaningful. You've got a program like Texas Tech who is, just ripe with resources that is now taking full advantage of that. On the football side, a team like Utah, who has not had a good offense in years, went and got a new quarterback, right? And is trying to get to the playoff and looks the part right now of a playoff team. You have all these different ways to do this and solve this puzzle. That game is wildly compelling to me for that exact reason. So, and yeah, you have Illinois in the top 10. You've got, well, Texas should be ranked lower, right? There's all these discrepancies between these programs and what they can provide, who they're recruiting, et cetera. That's what makes it exciting for sure. Team like
Yeah.
Georgia Tech, wherever they should be ranked, they are ranked. They've deserved it. And that scene yesterday was about as good a scene as you will see in all of college football this year.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, when Utah was very dominant in the Pac-12, and because the Pac-12 just would beat up on each other all the time, they weren't getting college football playoff appearances. And so it is nice to be able to see teams like that who I do think can compete in those games once we do get to the playoff. I am very excited to see how this season shakes out. I don't think, I mean, I'm not praying that we don't get lopsided first round games this season for college football, but you never know, it might still happen. But this has been a really fun season so far, and we're only 3 weeks in.
It flies though. That was my thought yesterday. Sizing up this week, right? Closing in on October. The first college football playoff rankings are what, 5, 6 weeks away. So the AP poll can do the heavy lifting for a while longer, which we love. But it'll be really interesting to see. Real quick, one of the other teams I just want to talk about, Ohio State. It's funny,
Yes.
right? We're just
Yeah.
kind
Oh,
of
yeah. The number one team.
the,
Whoops.
so struggled a little bit with Ohio early on. Jeremiah Smith did some amazing things in that game. Julian saying a couple interceptions, but played well. Ohio, I think, is actually a pretty good team. It is interesting amid all of this, and I thought about this and doing it on my own top 25. Like, they're going to be holding this thing down, I think, until you get a really massive statement win. So Penn State, Oregon or Georgia over Alabama, right? It feels like, what will it take, you think, to dethrone the Buckeyes? Because it feels like right now, coming off a natty, they're that team until they lose or something does something spectacular.
Yeah. Until I guess, because Penn State's probably not going to move either. So until they play each other, we're not going to know what
Totally.
1-2 could really have looked like.
Unless they look really bad. And yesterday was the final score wasn't bad. Like they kicked it up into gear in the second half, watching Bo Jackson, the freshman, doing some things at running back, which is just amazing to see for the 40-year-old here. No, they've got tons of talent, but it is funny already this part of the year, as much discussion as we have, we just kind of penciled them in. Where they're assumed until
Yes,
further
they got
notice.
that big win at the start of the season that's progressively looking maybe not as solid.
Yeah,
um,
true.
which is kind of crazy to think about. I also want to talk about Iowa State for a sec because they were ahead by quite a bit and then let Arkansas State come back into that game. Little bit of a worry meter for me there on Iowa State. Yikes.
I'm
Not
gonna
the best.
You know what though? Emotional letdown. Like
Yeah.
You beat Iowa, and
When
then you have
give
to
them a
go
break. Give them a
play
break. Yes.
Arkansas at Arkansas State. Like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Like, you could see that coming a
I
mile
figured back
away.
from my. They're
Yeah,
exhausted. That
yeah.
team mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted and just needs a break.
No, but you get a win, right? Like, look at the two
Yes, yes.
seasons, Iowa State and Kansas State, who began the year ranked, and now very, very, very unranked. You
Yes.
get that win, that close win to start the year. You propel yourselves forward. You keep winning close games like that, like they have against Iowa. I mean, really, their whole season has been a tightrope walk. As long as it keeps going, they'll keep moving up.
Yeah, by the way, let's talk about the hey, maybe don't go play your game in Ireland because if you lose that game, your record is pretty bad after that. But also
Not
shout
good,
out the Arizona Wildcats who did beat Kansas State, which was huge.
of
3-0 for the
course.
first time since 2015.
Did they
I
get
did see
any?
someone in the chat, I don't know if they're related to me or know me in any way, but did say, oh, Arizona could be here in no time.
Yeah,
We'd
no
be here for
votes.
it.
No votes yet.
No votes yet.
No votes yet. Yeah, next week teams to watch too. BYU obviously, South Carolina certainly can play their way back in. Mississippi State sort of on the cusp. TCU with a really interesting game coming up against SMU. That's one that I think could get ranked. I mean, there's going to be there's still a lot of ranked matchups in these this week coming up. Even if they're not top 10, you're going to have a ton of movement I think here come Sunday.
Yep. Well, another week of very fun football and lots to talk about. I imagine this will keep happening each week. We appreciate you guys in the chat having fun with us, giving us your opinions. And like I said, we will show you the AP poll and then we all can pretend we're voters and say what they did wrong each week. So we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. For Adam and Paige, talk to you guys next week.